it might be there.
Hello. Goodness me, I've just sat down. Welcome again to Thursday, and it's infant feeding live session again. And this is our 25th maybe, so aren't we doing well, all of us?
So, I don't know how you keep counting them, it's amazing.
Well, I say the next number up every week. So this is infant feeding session. It's questions and answers, and it's anything at all to do with infant feeding. Any questions that you're worried about, anything that you're worried about with your babies, if you're pregnant, anything that's significant to you that you want to know about before you have your baby.
To do with feeding.
To do with feeding,
Yeah.
Absolutely. So if you have questions about scans or inductions or about appointments and visiting, please direct it to Ask a Midwife, because we are midwives, but we don't always know the right answer because things change rapidly and we don't want to give you the wrong advice and then get told off. So please direct your questions to another forum if you have, if it's not about infant feeding. So infant feeding is about breastfeeding and about formula feeding and giving bottles and about attachment and anything at all about feeding your baby and your baby's development within feeding.
And relationship building, which is what we thought we'd talk about today. So we thought we'd talk about relationship building in that antenatal period and how fabulous that can be for building up that that bond between you and your baby even before your baby's born. I know some people don't feel like they're a mother until the baby arrives, and we're all different as to when we actually feel like we've become a mother. It varies from one woman to another, but it's talking about beginning to be aware of that baby that you're carrying around inside you, that you've grown and are growing, and that you're going to nurture when they arrive. So you're going to grow this gorgeous baby, and you're going to feed this gorgeous baby, and it's having that positivity as well about it. So we thought we'd talk about some of that today because it makes a big difference.
And they do recognise your voice when they come out. If you do lots of chatting to your baby, and your partner does lots of chatting and singing and patting and stroking, and storytelling and whatever else.
And siblings.
So if you've got other babies, they may well tell them stories as well, and they hear the noises of the house, and so it's very familiar when they come out that they recognise those noises, and they're very familiar to your baby outside the womb as well. So it's very very important part of your development as a mother, as a family and as parents, but also for your baby's development, that they have that interaction, and the building that relationship between you is reciprocal. So it's it's about skin to skin. It's about stroking your baby, cuddling your baby, wearing a sling, and obviously looking at your baby's cues, feeding your baby when it needs feeding. You feed your baby when you want to feed your baby and you're very full. Yeah. It's about that two-way process. It's reciprocity, and it's about recognising the need for that relationship. And babies need cuddles. We all need cuddles. Everybody loves skin to skin. Babies love skin to skin, and that primes babies' brains to grow. It's really important that they have that contact with you, so that they can fire off all those millions of neurons that are in their brain and start that process of development. And the way that breast milk is that it allows brain growth rather than physical growth. So your baby grows its brain before it starts to grow itself in terms of walking and standing up and eating and talking and all of those things. If you think about other mammals, they may well, like a seal, it has milk for a very short period of time, and then it doesn't need it anymore because it's very different needs. And a cow, a baby calf will stand up very quickly and start to walk about very quickly. So the different types of protein in the milk will develop the mammal babies in different ways.
And ours is the highest in sugar. Our milk has the highest amount of sugar in it in comparison to any other mammal. And the reason for that is because we are growing brains, because brains need sugar. A brain that's starved of sugar is really going to struggle. So actually, which is why we worry about people who have diabetes and going into a glycemic coma. So, from that point of view, it's so important that our babies are getting sugar. And colostrum, funnily enough, is full of sugar. And if you ever see colostrum dried, if any of you are in the antenatal point at the moment, and you've ever seen any colostrum dried on your nipple, which often women do see in the antenatal period, it'll look like a coating of dried sugar. It's like crystalline, it's sort of like dries. It's very interesting. So actually colostrum is, we've talked about it before, fantastic and perfect food for the baby, and chock-a-block with sugar, ready for that baby's brain growth. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think also, you know, your baby feels secure if you have that relationship building. If you build up a relationship with your baby, that is its world. That is your baby's security. It knows that it's safe with you, and it expects that you're going to be there. So when you put your baby down and you walk away and your baby cries, he thinks that you're not coming back, because he doesn't know if you're coming back.
Yeah.
You've put him down and walked away, and so the way that he will express that is he will cry, and that's because, you know, he needs that security at that age, and you can't spoil a baby. You can't make them. Some people may say that you'll make a rod for your own back if you pick your baby up and cuddle it. That if you feed it too much, or you do too much with it, that you're going to spoil it and it'll expect it. And actually, a baby's brain is not physically able to do that as a newborn.
No, I think they've really worked out now that actually babies just do need to be cuddled and loved. And the more that we can cuddle and love our babies and keep them close, the better they are, the more confident they are as they get older. They learn to trust us. They know that you as the caregiver are going to meet their needs. That if they cry, you're going to go and soothe them. They're not always going to stop crying. You're not always going to be able to stop that. But they need to know you're there, you know, trying to help them calm down. Because they can't self-soothe and they can't self-comfort. That's not possible with a baby. They haven't got the capacity to do that. So we cannot love them or cuddle them enough. So never ever be told that you're spoiling your baby or you're cuddling them too much. Your intuition as mums usually is, I'm going to pick my baby up and cuddle it because it's upset. Follow your intuition. It's absolutely right, and research supports that.
And you know, the closeness is really important. That's your skin to skin and carrying your baby around, but also keeping your baby in your room at night with you in the early months is really important, because that's part of the closeness and building a relationship up with your baby and responding to your baby's needs quickly and as then safely as it's needed. And the responsiveness is not letting your baby cry, so picking your baby up when its needs will need to be met, talking to it, cuddling as we said, and just holding your baby all the time. You're not going to spoil it. I think that's the most important thing.
That's the main message,
and
isn't it?
You won't spoil it, your baby will feel safe, and you'll help to grow your baby's brain.
Yeah, and have secure and confident children as they grow up, because they know you're there to meet their needs. We've had a hello from, got a few messages already. So Charlotte has come through and said, hi ladies, good afternoon. Hello Charlotte. We've had a hello from Imi as well. Hello Imi, I hope you got the email I sent you. Sorry about its delay. And Tan has come on and saying her baby's really noisy on the breast, sometimes snuffly, some high-pitched sounds. It doesn't come off. I'm using nipple shields and he's 3.5 weeks old. He has lots of wheeze and poos, and with support is now swallowing quite well. Is this something to be worried about?
I think the squeaky is probably him getting lots of milk. If it's sort of a, is it that sort of noise you're talking about? That as he's swallowing, you're hearing that sort of squeaky noise. And is he meeting his needs? You know, his milestones. Is he gaining enough weight appropriately? You're saying he's doing lots of wheeze and poos, but is his weight secure and everything? And we don't know why you're using the nipple shields initially. Does he still need them? Can you try to challenge them and get him off them to see if that makes feeding a bit quieter and a bit more easy for him? He may well be able to tolerate not using nipple shields now. Can you get somebody to help you? Somewhere like OBS or the Baby Cafe in Abingdon. You know, they have got support that they can do if you feel that you would like to change what you're doing at all. You can talk to us on the phone if you'd like to, but if you feel that he's meeting everything that needs and he's breathing okay, he's, you know, not changing colour when he's feeding, that he's a lot of babies are snuffly. They get a lot of milk in the back of their nose when they regurgitate milk and when they're feeding, and they get quite a lot of bogies in their nose as a result of it, and that makes them quite snuffly when they get lots and lots of milk. And it might be that you have got a lot of milk and you've got quite a heavy letdown, and that gives him a lot of milk in the first part of the feed. And is that what you're experiencing in terms of squeaking? Because lots of babies are quite noisy when they get lots of milk. It's how they cope with suck, swallow and breathe.
Because you're saying that your baby's got lots of wheeze and poos, so just to recap, we always say this, he's now 3.5 weeks old, so you should be having 6 heavy wet nappies a day. That should be nice clear urine, as you know, nothing more than champagne coloured really, no other colours than that, and at least 2 £2 coin size yellow stools a day. So that's the minimum you should be getting. And you're saying that you can hear the swallowing. Well, swallowing is a really, really good sign. So obviously babies go on and they do chomp, chomp, chomp to get the let down, and then they go into big, deep sucks, and you should be hearing swallowing probably every couple of sucks, really. Suck, 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 swallow, suck, suck, swallow, and that would be a really good sign. And obviously weight is the final one on that. But I'm very aware that this screen keeps phasing in and out. I'm really sorry about that. It seems to have settled now. I was wondering about putting the lights on, so I could see it pulsating. So sorry if you were getting sort of feeling a bit unwell watching the screen pulsating, but it seems to have settled. Hopefully it's finished now. Right, so that was Tan's question. I hope that's what it hasn't stopped. I'm going to try putting the light on and just see if it's to do with the focus on the camera. Sorry about that.
It's a funny day. The weather's changing outside and we're by the window so you can see us, so hopefully that's a bit better for you now.
I wonder if it's darker than it has been in the past and it's struggling to focus.
Yeah,
so sorry about that. So hopefully it'll stop now. So that was Tan, and Delana has come on. How can I know my baby's fontanelle is so sunken? I'm so worried about her. I feel her soft spot slightly down. So I think the first thing that you would see actually is a reduction in output from her wheeze and poos before you ever see a sunken fontanelle. That's usually quite far down the line. It's normal for it not to be flush with the bones of the head, but it shouldn't be really noticeably sunken is what you're looking for. If you are concerned, then it would be worth speaking to your GP, get someone to check your baby. But if your baby's pooing and weeing appropriate to age, we've just discussed that, then actually then it would probably be less likely that's happening. I don't know, anything to add to that?
I think, is your baby's mouth looking normal? Are they looking pink and they handle well? They're bright-eyed? They're responding and waking up to everything that's happening. They're gaining the right amount of weight, and they generally look happy. How old did you say your baby was?
She didn't say. No, Delana didn't say.
Then that sounds normal. It sounds like everything is fine, but I know that it causes quite a lot of anxiety to an awful lot of parents when they have those fontanelles, because you feel it's quite a vulnerable spot on your baby's head, don't you? And it, as Alex said, it shouldn't be really, you don't want it to be bulging. You want it to be just slightly below the level of the bones on the skull. So if all of those things that Alex talked about are normal, then it's probably fine if your baby's reaching its milestones.
She's just come back. She's 46 days. So she's just
days,
over a month then, a month and a half.
Yeah, so I think hopefully you've been seen by a healthcare professional and you've got access to your health visitor. That's your first port of call, really, that you should be talking to your health visitor or your GP if you're worried about the well-being of your baby.
Absolutely.
So do call and ask if you haven't had your baby weighed and you haven't had your baby checked. I'm sure you're having a 6-week check, in the next week or two. Then they will check again. But if you're not happy with everything, then make an appointment and get your baby checked out, and that will reassure you.
Even if it's just for your reassurance, but it is well worth doing if you're worried.
Yeah, many parents spend a lot of time in the doctor's surgery when they have newborn babies. It's completely normal to feel anxious and out of your depth with all the things that are going on around you. And you don't have the peer support anymore that mums used to have, where they could go out and meet other mums and talk to them about normal stuff. And that's part of your development as a mother, and you're missing out on that at the moment because we can't go out and meet other people.
You may even be able to do it on a virtual, just on a video call with either the health visitor or the GP, because that's something you would be able to see, is what the fontanelle looks like. So have a look at that. But again, check out what the poos and wees are doing, because that's a really good indicator. It would be very unlikely the fontanelle would be sunken if everything else is normal. But
I think you'd have a lot more signs before that your baby was unwell, and it probably wouldn't be stooling normally. They'd probably be very constipated or not passing stools at all, and their skin might be quite dry, and they might have very dark rings under their eyes. It's not always like that, but there's lots of other signs before you'd get to a sunken fontanelle. It's quite a long way down the line that you would see that happening, and your baby would be quite poorly. So I think if everything else is all right, then it probably sounds that your baby's okay, but you must get checked out if you're not sure.
I hope that's reassured you, Delana, or if nothing else, that you're actually going to contact the GP. Tamara has said her baby's 4 months and past few days only taking 3 to 4 ounces of milk at a time, and was taking 6 to 7 previously, any ideas. So,
is it formula or is it breast milk that your baby's having in the bottle? Presumably it's in a bottle, that's what you're saying. And is it doing what it should be doing? So is it pooing and peeing the same and behaving normally? Has your baby had a cold? Have you got other children around, or has anybody else been poorly in the house?
Immunisations, has your baby just had their immunisations? Because that can make a difference, because you know what it's like if you have a vaccine, you don't feel great for a few days afterwards. So, you know, if they've had their vaccine, then maybe, because they're 4 months, then maybe they're having a few days of not feeling quite so nice. And we none of us eat quite so much when we're not feeling great. So could it be that? So it's thinking about all the different things it could be.
Is your baby feeding more frequently but taking less? That's the other thing. Is it feeding and waking and asking for more frequent feeds but having less volume, or is it the same amount and the same number of feeds in 24 hours? A little bit more information perhaps, or have a conversation with your health visitor if you're not sure, if you need to have your baby checked out. But has anything changed in the last week? Has anything been done to your baby, or have you been unwell?
Right, just finding my way back up again as we skip down. Just make sure I get to the right place and don't miss anyone. I don't like it when I miss people. So Tan's come back about her baby and the noise that the baby's making. She says, yes, that's the noise. He took a while to get to birth weight, but gaining well now. Well, it sounds fantastic, because if that's the sort of noise they're making, then usually that means they're getting good volumes of milk.
Loads of milk.
Delana's come back to say her baby's put on 81 grams in 13 days. Is this normal? It's less than we would expect, Delana. I think you probably do need to get your baby checked out. We're expecting a baby boy, and I have a feeling you said yours was a baby boy, to be gaining in the region of 30 grams a day. So that is definitely less than we would want your baby to be gaining. Hopefully your baby was weighed by the health visitor, and if so, they've put a feeding plan in place, because I think that's what you probably need. If that's not the case, could you get in touch with us so we can help you put a plan in place to try and help you with that? Because I think that would be worth following up. Or give us a message on here and tell us that you want us to contact you. But I think you do need a feeding plan in place, Delana, if not by us, but by your health visitors, because 81 grams is not what we would expect your baby to be gaining over 13 days. Charlotte's come back. Her baby's 5 months and formula and breast milk. Also now started stage 1 food and is growing a lot and also putting on weight. I want to thank all the midwives at the JR and Spas and Chipping Norton. That's lovely. We'll relay that.
So they are great, aren't they?
Yeah, that's lovely. I'm really pleased that you're doing well with that.
Amazing.
Imi's come to us and said that Leo is dribbling milk from his nose when he's feeding. Is this normal? It is quite normal, actually. You quite often
scary,
see
isn't it, when it happens?
You quite often see it. Upright feeding, less likely to happen. If they're laying in the cross-cradle position, so across you, more likely to happen, especially if their body's higher than their head. Yeah, we do see it.
And if they're quite greedy babies, if your baby's feeding and guzzling and loves, to really slurp and suckle, and you've got lots of milk, then it does come out of their nose a little bit as well. And particularly when they pulse it a little bit back, they can vomit a little bit back, and it all comes out of their nose as well. And then they get lots of bogies in their nose as well, don't they?
Milk bogies.
So, milk bogies, yeah. And it does get stuck in the back of their postnasal space, because it's all connected at the back there. So it sometimes does come out. But if you sit up, as Alex said, it might help a little bit.
Yeah.
It might be that you talk to OBS or Baby Cafe and just see if they can show you some different positions, and talk to them about different positions for your baby to feed at that age.
Mia has said she's got a 7-week-old baby. He falls asleep after a very short feed in the night, a few minutes, and then falls back to sleep. He'll then wake up very frequently to continue snacking. Is there anything I can do to improve this? Oh, you poor love, that's hard, isn't it?
It's a funny cycle, that one, isn't it? Yeah, I think try and encourage him to feed more. How many feeds is he having in the rest of the day? Is he getting 8 feeds for the rest of the time? And could you do something like compressions when you're feeding him when he wakes up, to try and encourage him to feed more, strip him off a little bit to see if that will help. It might be for a couple of nights you need to sit up and put is your milk cocks and box, and try some different things and see if you can break the cycle. Of course he'll feed every hour if you let him. He'll love it. He just thinks he's in heaven. He's got mummy to himself all night, and that's just heavenly for babies. And some parents don't mind that, and other parents do. You know, it depends on your lifestyle and what else is going on in your family. I think probably at 7 weeks you're reaching a level of, you're quite tired because you've been doing this for quite a while, and if he's continuing to wake up at night, it's quite hard work, isn't it?
It's really hard work.
It's really hard work. So I think, see if you can break the cycle by waking him up a little bit more, be a bit more proactive in that feed when he's really sleepy. It depends how long he's sleeping for before he wakes up and then has that 2-minute feed. But if it's sort of after 2 hours, if he's not really ready to feed, but he's waking himself up, can you leave him for a little tiny bit longer if he's reaching his milestones, you know, by patting him, and see if he wakes up an hour later and then has a proper feed when he's ready to feed, or is he just genuinely sleepy? I think, you know, there's lots of different answers, and I don't know the whole background, so I don't want to say let him sleep longer if he's not gaining weight. But if he's doing all the things he should, it might be that he's not quite ready to feed, but he's stirring.
And we don't also want to say that leave him to cry, because that's definitely not what we're saying.
No,
we do need to
pat him and soothe him, and if he definitely wants feeding, wake him up, strip him, you know, go into another space, put a light on and feed him properly if that can break the cycle. But if he's just fed 2 hours before and he's stirring again and then he's waking hourly, and he's reaching his milestones, see if he'll go a little bit longer and feed a bit better, if he's soothed by you patting and he's happy just to turn over and sleep a little bit longer. I don't know the whole picture, so I don't want to advise you definitely, but it might be you need to break that cycle a little bit. And it's normal for babies to do what he's doing, but it's hard work for parents when they do that.
Yeah. Tamara's come back and said that she's giving formula, so we would expect normally for a baby to be taking more and more when it's formula. Breast milk, it doesn't work the same. Breast milk, the constituents of the milk change, so the volumes don't increase, but when a baby's being formula fed, we do anticipate the volumes will go up. But it might be worth thinking about what else is going on tomorrow. Normal behaviour, she says, no illness, no vaccines lately, due next week. Anyone else with a cold in the house? Those are the sort of things we want. Same amount of feed, she's saying, but just taking less. So I think watch and see what happens. It's not uncommon that babies don't take the same amount at all times, and just see, as long as your baby's well, then it might just be a couple of days and then they go back up and take a bit more again, really. Just keep an eye open that you're getting similar volumes.
If he's struggling with the bottle that you've got, do you need to change the bottle? Maybe try something different. Will he take it more effectively if you change it? It might be that his mouth's got a little bit bigger and he's not coping with the teat that you've got. Be creative, try a few different things and see if that helps. Is he sitting up? Are you responsibly feeding him, or are you tipping it right up for him so it's coming very fast and he's not able to deal with that? Hold the bottle on its side. So have we got a bottle here?
Yeah, we do.
We've got one with a thingy on it.
Grab it doll from there as well.
A doll, yeah. So we want you to be sitting with your baby close into you, and hold the bottle. I've got a tube on here which we use for demonstration, which I don't want you to necessarily see. I can't see another bottle with a teat on at the moment. But if you tip the bottle up like that, it will pour out, the fluid will pour out, the milk will pour out very quickly, and the baby will struggle to take the feed and breathe and swallow and suck and cope. But if you turn the bottle onto its side like that, then the flow, and you just make sure that there's enough milk in this part of the teat rather than the whole teat, and then let the baby let your baby suck in the teat, and take what it wants to take, and it will suckle and pause, suckle and pause, suckle and pause. Maybe wind your baby and then offer a little bit more, and then maybe have a little break. It might be worth feeding your baby slightly more frequently with the same amount, and see if that helps to increase the amount of food that your baby gets. And has something happened did he have a feed which he got a fright from, it was very fast or something, and he's had an experience which has made him a bit nervous? Have different people been feeding him? We try and encourage the same family members to feed your baby, so it's just a couple of people, so yourself and somebody else maybe, and at the most one more person, but not having lots of different people feeding your baby is really important, so they recognise that you're the nurturer, they feel very secure and
Yeah, safe.
safe with what's happening.
And you'll do it in a slightly different way to other people as well. And remember that smell, we've already been talking about responsiveness and relationship building, that we all have our own individual smells, and that actually it's really important that your baby learns your smell, and that's what part of what that skin to skin time at birth is all about. And actually your smell is really, really reassuring to your baby. And much as we probably all shower mostly daily, we still have a smell that our babies know, and that they find calming and reassuring. So being fed by you is really important.
And they do recognise that very quickly.
Yeah. I hope we've answered those tomorrow. So obviously if you've got any concerns, do go and chat with your health visitor or your GP as well. But hopefully it's just a little blip and your little baby will be back feeding.
If it doesn't resolve soon, then you need to be talking to your health visitor, really.
Yeah. Nicole has said that her baby's 4 weeks. He doesn't open his mouth wide enough, so he ends up hurting my nipple. Any ways of trying to get him to open a bit more? I've tried everything. So I think that's brushing for a gape. This most important thing you can do. So it's making sure that you are, if you're thinking about it, lovely. So if you're thinking about this is the baby's mouth, that you're brushing the baby against the upper lip against the nipple and brushing for a gape. And remembering that actually, in order to get a really big wide mouth, your baby is going to have to be coming up to the breast, chin leading, head tip back. So can I borrow your doll? So we've got pictures we'll show you as well. They really want to be coming to the breast in that sort of position, exactly like this. So think about, how are you lining your baby up? Are they definitely going on nose to nipple? Then the head goes back, so it goes nose to nipple, then the head tips back, so they go there to there and on. So in order to elicit a gape, a nice big wide gape, which is head back, mouth open, tongue down, you really need to have that baby starting nose to nipple. If the baby starts with the nipple near its mouth, it does not need to open it much, so it will go onto the breast. So make sure you're starting there, and then they go there and on. So that can make such a big difference and make it much more comfortable. So really look at what you're doing. Are you starting nose opposite nipple before you get going? And once you've that baby's got its mouth wide open, are you bringing your baby on straight? And when I mean straight, I mean it's literally that movement and not this movement. So we're not hooking the baby on like this, we're just coming on straight like this. And it makes such a difference. We've said it many times before.
The chin leads.
Yeah.
The chin needs to lead and the nose is free, so they're sniffing the air when they're going on, and that elicits a gape. The baby will naturally gape if it's allowed to lift its head back. But the other thing it'll do is stick its tongue out, so it'll go like that. When the baby's head goes back, it automatically will drop its tongue out, and then it can scoop a deep mouthful of breast into the mouth, and it'll go right to the back of the throat. But it's a real art to line your baby up correctly, because you think it's going to fall off the breast almost, it's too low. So think, it's much further around from the nipple than you think. And you almost line if you're doing a cross cradle, your baby's tummy button is almost is in line with your other nipple. It's much further around and it's right into the contours of your body. Yeah. So they come back, the nose and the free and the chin leads, and then the tongue comes out, and then they scoop that mouthful, as those pictures and Alex has demonstrated.
So it really is nose opposite nipple. They're much more likely to get that big wide gape and take the nipple into the top of their mouth. So good luck with that, Nicole, and I hope things get a bit better. Charlotte's come to say her baby's even got a tooth now. Wow. Oh, Amy's just come said, and Leo's definitely greedy.
Yeah.
The lovely smiley face. So lovely. Mia's come back and said thank you. And Nicola said, is there a good sitting position to be in, as I have large breasts? Well, underarm actually, if you are quite large, underarm works really, really well. It allows you to have the baby to your side. We would suggest that you should do it on a sofa, that you have lots of room to your side where the baby's going to be and behind you. So Naomi's going to demonstrate, and I'll move the camera so you can see.
So you might find, are you going to tip it down?
I was going to tip it down.
So this is a slightly large breast. Remember, I'm holding the breast because I'm going to lose it if I don't. But the same principles of attachment are the same if you're across your tummy like this, or if you're underarm, but you might find rugby ball hold is slightly better because the weight of your breast is on your baby's chest, so your baby allows the breast to rest. But the other thing you can do, and I don't think I've got one here, is to roll a muslin up. So you can get a muslin square. Let's pretend this is a muslin square. So fold a muslin square up, roll it up like this, and then put it underneath your breast like that, and just make a shelf with your breast, and that will bring your breast up slightly, and it means that you don't need to support it quite so much. And then you can see your baby's face a little bit better. Can you see that I'm supporting the breast there, but actually your baby is, if your breasts are slightly larger, your baby will need to be looking up at you more. If your breasts are slightly further down, your baby may need to come sideways a little bit more. So it's working with that angle of the dangle, it's working with the way that your breast lies. If your breast is slightly higher, then you'll need to come up higher on your with your baby on your chest. But so it's working if your baby's there, there, or there, and you're working with that angle to allow your baby to attach to the breast well, and this will support and wedge the breast if it's slightly heavier, and it will help your breast rest with your baby and on the little wedge that you've got to support it. That's probably the easiest way to feed your baby if you've got slightly larger breasts, but you can do it across your tummy as well. It's exactly the same principles, and it's exactly what Alex has already talked about. Have a look at your breasts on a video. Get someone to film you and look at what you're actually doing and see if that mimics what we've just talked about. Don't look at somebody else's baby on YouTube breastfeeding or on a video about breastfeeding. Look at yours. Get someone to video you breastfeeding and the shape and the dangle of your breast, and see what you're doing. And if your baby's not coming up with that dangle, move your baby around so that you can see that it is, and just video it and look at it and see where you're going slightly wrong. If it's not quite right, is that dangle correct? Is your angle of your baby coming up to the breast correct in relation to your breast? And that will allow you to see if you are feeding your baby in the right plane, if you're able to get your baby in the breast and sustain the latch, because quite often when your baby's attaching, if he's on sideways, the breast will fall out of the mouth. If he's not quite on in the right place, it won't stabilise it in his mouth. So it's really important that you can stabilise the breast in his mouth, so he's not having to hold on to it and try and suckle and sustain that attachment. If it's falling all the time, as soon as he stops suckling and pauses, it will fall out of his mouth. So getting the angle of the dangle right will mean that the breast is stable in his mouth, so when he pauses it doesn't actually go anywhere, it stays where it is, and that makes feeding much easier for everybody if you can see that. So have a video of yourself, look at what you're doing, look at the way he's feeding and see if you can improve it looking at that and listening to what we've just said. Does that help?
Hopefully it has. So Tan's come back and said thank you for what we said earlier, and Charlotte's come back and said thank you ladies, I'm learning still as this is my first ever baby. I still can't believe I'm a mum to a beautiful baby girl. Isn't that lovely?
Well, we're still learning, and our babies
we're
are in
still
their
learning
20s,
we're always learning
We're still learning.
We're always learning, and we learn so much from the mums that we meet as
all
well.
the time, yeah.
So because everybody's different, you know.
They don't come with a textbook, do
No,
they?
but
Or an instruction manual.
no.
So well done.
Yeah, Nicole said thank you very much. So good luck with that, Nicole. Give it a go. Malin has said thank you for these live sessions. I have a 2-week baby girl who's now breastfeeding well. Brilliant. My issue is now trying to manage the other breast leaking heavily at the same time. Any tips? Is that going to get better in the coming weeks as we settle into a bit of a routine? Thanks. You poor lovely. I know leaking can be quite something, can't it? It can be quite torrential. Well, I mean, people use breast shells. They're just round with a hole in the middle that you can just put off. They look a bit like a donut, really, and that you put inside your bra. And other people have used the Hacker, which encourages the leaking if anything, nothing else. And that milk can be saved. But you know, the thing about the leaked milk, we talk about milk being that higher sugar, lower fat milk at the beginning of a feed, and that higher fat milk toward the end of the feed. The milk that you leak is going to be that high sugar, low fat milk. So if you do use it for a feed, remember your baby may not be quite as settled with it. It's not as high fat content. But that might be a way of dealing with it, is to put a shell in. Some people will just use pads you know, breast
muslin,
pads.
just pop a muslin
Yeah,
down your
just
t-shirt
if
when
you-
you're feeding.
If you don't need the milk and don't want to save it, but you could always save it if you are getting it and it's not causing you too much of a hassle to save it, then obviously we do have the milk bank here that would be absolutely delighted for any milk that you can spare. We're very, very lucky. We have a fantastic, thriving milk bank here in Oxford. We've been lucky enough to support mums, not just on the neonatal unit, but on the wards and some special cases out in the community. So, we are very, very lucky. So, Malin, if you are finding you have much more milk than you need in that respect, then do think about collecting it and giving it to the milk bank whenever possible. I know that might not always be feasible if you're out and about with feeding, but maybe a breast shell, maybe a hacker pump.
I think following on from the hacker, and Alex said you can collect and it can make it more, it can encourage more production if you use the hacker and the shells. It does encourage more collection in your breasts. It sort of stimulates them more. But also, on the other hand, is if you use it and that you're collecting large volumes while you're feeding on one side and you breastfeed on both sides normally, remember that breast will have been drained a little bit before your baby feeds on it. So it may be that it's not getting a full feed with the other side once you've dripped the milk out. So yes, it's much tidier and it's much less messy if you collect it, but it will encourage more to drip than if you were just putting a muslin, say, or a pad on. You might just find that you don't leak quite so much, whereas if you put a hacker or a shell in, you will get more from it because the pressure on your breast will make it drip more. And that might take a feed away from your baby if you feed on both sides and you rely on that. And then that just seems to be a bit counterproductive if you're taking milk out of your breast and your baby can't get enough at the breast when it's having the second side. So just be aware, if you've got plenty of milk and your baby feeds on one side, that's absolutely fine. But if you're feeding on both sides, just bear in mind that it may drain your breast a bit more than it ought to, and it might be that your baby loses out on some of its milk if you've drained that breast a bit more than you would need to. So
just thinking about the fact that your baby's actually only 2 weeks old, we know that most women produce way more milk than they need in the first few weeks, and that's, I know there are some out there who are not producing enough for their babies, but there are women out there who produce quite a lot more than they need. So that normally tends to settle at around 6 weeks. So if you're not stimulating and you're just feeding and perhaps following what Naomi's saying, maybe putting a pad in or a muslin, then actually around 6 weeks we would anticipate your milk supply starts to calm down and just meet your baby's needs and no more. And that's, if that's what you want, that's absolutely fine. So it's quite common for women to have more than they need at the 2 week point.
You make enough for 6 babies in the first couple of weeks, because with mammals they don't know how many babies you've had. So once they work out that you've had 1 or 2 or sometimes 3, your breast will make enough for your baby from what you're asking. So we don't want to overstimulate and expect that you keep making enough for 6, because you'll keep making enough for 6. So it's about your baby.
I don't think we see many who produce enough for 6.
We don't.
No, very few.
You know what I mean. You know what I mean.
I was always taught that actually the twins are so common that it's quite normal that we can produce enough for 2 easily.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
As mammals, absolutely.
So.
But you don't want to stimulate so that your body's expecting to keep making that volume, because actually it's not realistic in terms of your baby doesn't need probably to have all that milk. It's always nice to have a little bit too much. But you don't want to overstimulate as well, and your body will damp down when it realises you've only got 1 to feed.
Yeah. Mia has come back again and said her breasts squirt out a lot of milk at quite a speed. Is this normal? I think it startles my baby sometimes. I bet it does. I bet it goes in their face. Quite often, isn't it, when your baby goes on, starts to feed, then chokes a bit, comes off, and they get a face full of milk, don't they? It's just
and they
jetting.
shudder with a surprise when it goes in their eyes, doesn't it?
Totally normal. It's absolutely totally normal. It just means you've got a very strong letdown. Some women don't ever jet, some women just drip, and other women really jet. So it's not a problem, Mia. It's just on the spectrum of normal, really.
I think make sure your attachments are absolutely tip-top, because if the baby's on nice and deeply, it will just go down the throat, whereas if it's in their mouth a little bit, not quite far enough, they can splutter a little bit more. They can splutter anyway if it's a big forceful letdown, but the further back into the baby's mouth it is, the less likely they are to get milk pooling in their mouth. And then they struggle to suck and swallow and breathe all at once, and they come off spluttering. So just make sure you get a really good mouthful of breast, and that will help them deal with that fast flow very effectively and efficiently.
So Charlotte's come back again, says her baby girl Alicia is very happy and very chatty every day. Isn't that lovely? That's so nice. I'm glad you're enjoying your baby so much. She's our last one for the moment until someone else puts something else up. But
Keep going with our questions.
yeah, so we were talking about responsiveness though, weren't we, in relationship building. You know, that can start now if you're an antenate. So, you know, if you haven't had your baby yet, being aware of when your baby's moving, talking to them, we mentioned earlier, and just making that connection with your baby, getting others involved, we already talked about that. And actually music, we hear about how soothing music can be. Obviously it needs to be music that you like. It doesn't have to be just because one person thinks Beethoven's Fifth's fantastic doesn't mean that if you don't like that and you'd much rather listen to a bit of AC/DC or whatever, if you even know what AC/DC are, then actually, you know, you go with what you like, because whatever you like is good for you, not what necessarily what somebody else likes. But it's amazing because we do hear stories of babies that have had music played whilst they've been in utero in their mummy's tummies, and then actually then it's been played again when the baby's been born, and it's been really soothing. It's really calmed the baby down if it's a piece of music that they know and have listened to many times. So it's amazing to think about this little person growing who's already making these fantastic brain connections, that they know this piece of music is, you know, related to their time before they were born and the voices that they've heard, and you know, that's all very important. So thinking about that connection before your baby's even born is fantastic, and carrying it on when they're born.
Familiar noises like washing machines and hoovers, and you know, things that you use in your house all the time, they will recognise.
Your favourite soap opera, the music for the soap opera, they'll get used to something like that. You know, whatever programme you like, if you have programmes that you watch a lot, they'll get used to the signature tunes for those. So, you know, it's amazing. I always giggle because, you know, I'm an old fuddy-duddy and mine got used to the Archers. So, so it's, you know, it's thinking about that connection you're making, even all the way through the antenatal period and into the postnatal period, and how helpful it is for that soothing of the baby and calming and comforting.
And that helps you as well, because you see your babies recognising things, and they do stop and listen when it comes in. You know, you can see the change in your baby's face when they hear it, and they're sort of thinking about things. But it, you know, it's all part of their development, and it's really crucial that they have that connection with you, and it starts at conception, really, with everything that's going on and the growth. You know, your baby develops normally in that way. Any more questions?
Yeah, Rona's come on. She says that she's made the decision to transition to bottle feeding. She's 2 weeks post-birth, and she's conscious of not just stopping as her breasts become too full. How do I gently reduce my supply so I'm more comfortable? I've been pumping a few times a day and have still put the baby to the breast a few times, but I've literally no idea what the best thing to do is to make this transition. Well, it is slowly, like you're saying,
you're doing it absolutely right.
And the pumping is just to take off enough to make yourself comfortable. Don't take any more. So when you start, you know, if you're sitting there and you think, I'm feeling really full and very uncomfortable, just take off enough till you go, oh, that's better, but no more than that. Now that might mean initially you're having to pump fairly frequently, but what you're not going to be doing is draining the breast. So you don't want to be taking lots off, because we talk about when people want to stimulate a supply, the more you remove, the more you get. So actually you want to be slowly but surely removing less and less and less. Initially that might be fairly frequently, but over a period of time you'll find it will start to go down because you're not asking for it. So it's been trying a very slow, and it does need to be slow process, because at 2 weeks you probably have a pretty much full supply already, and just thinking about, you know, just gently bringing that supply down. Otherwise you do run the risk of having mastitis.
Don't take something like Epsom salts. You might find that somebody says, oh, just take some Epsom salts and make yourself dehydrated, and that's what, you know, in the 60s and 70s mothers were told to do to dry their milk up. So don't do anything extreme.
I've never
like
even
that.
heard of it. That's new to me. I told you I'm learning all the time. I've never heard that. So.
Yeah, so it's very dehydrating, and it's not very good for you or for you, you know, for your family really. So yes, absolutely, just slowly and gently, and wean them off the breast a little bit. You know, just let them have a little suckle.
Yeah.
And that won't make more milk. It's soothing for them, and it's separating the relationship that you've had into the new relationship, which is really important. And I think that's part of it. It's part of your relationship building with your baby. And the other thing is that if you're wanting to change what you're doing, allow yourself to have the opportunity to talk to somebody about how you're feeling about that.
Yeah.
That's part of your relationship building with your baby as well, and the fact that you're feeling comfortable and happy as a family. And so explore the conversations, and if you're not sure about how you're feeling about feeding, and you're not sure which way to go when you're feeding, talk to your midwife if you're still pregnant and have a conversation with her about your feelings about becoming a mother and the relationship building that you have with your baby before and in the early days. And your health visitors are extremely good at doing this. They are extremely good at pinpointing you to talk about your feelings and how you feel about your day-to-day changes in your life that you're exploring, and the trials and tribulations of breastfeeding or bottle feeding your baby, because it's such an unknown to so many people. And it's the other thing with breastfeeding is that it's at least 8 times a day in 24 hours and doesn't stop, whereas labour stops. It's a period of time, and then you can see the end of it. And if you're not enjoying it, or you're having problems, it's very difficult to enjoy and look forward to the next feed. And you've got to be able to explore that and be able to talk that through with somebody, so that if that's with your partner, with your family, or with your midwife, or with your health visitor, you need to be able to feel comfortable and safe having that conversation and not feel judged, and that whatever decision you make about the way that you're looking and caring for your baby is the right decision for you as a family. That's the most important thing. It's what's right for you as a family. And to be able to explore that and to discuss it is also part of your relationship building. Exploring becoming a mother, about becoming a family, is part of that relationship building. So it's really important that you have got that ability to be able to talk about how you're feeling about becoming a mother and about your baby in a safe way.
So good luck with that, Rona. See how you get on. If you need some support, then we're quite happy to chat to you on the telephone, but I think it's just slowly and gently. Exactly what you've already started. Your intuition was spot on this one. Laura has said, if we need help with breastfeeding in the first few days after birth, who is best to contact at the moment with all the COVID restrictions? Well, in the first few days after birth, it's your midwives and your MSW. So whichever community team you're based with, so it might be Blenheim or Isis if you're in Oxford, or somewhere like Bicester or Witney or Chipping Norton, whatever. Wherever you are based, there will be midwives and MSWs who will be continuing to support you. If you have your baby in hospital, you'll go home. Let's say you go home within 24 to 48 hours, you will see the midwife the next day. They will come and see you or invite you into their unit, depending on how you're doing. So, you will see somebody within 24 hours of being discharged from hospital, and continued support carries on from there. So we don't just leave you, we give you lots and lots of help. So your community teams will help you. If things are going well, you'll then be discharged at day 10, and hopefully having seen someone a couple of times at least, you'll be discharged to the health visitors. And over that, we still have the support from Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support, which we've mentioned on this programme many a time. So OBS, so Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support, and the Abingdon Baby Cafe and the La Leche League can all give ongoing support. They're not face-to-face. They are mostly virtual. Some of it's face-to-face, but the majority of it is virtual, but it still works really well. And they will be able to support you with ongoing feeding problems. And if it's deemed that you need even more support than that, and definitely face-to-face, then it might be appropriate for you to come in to see us at the breastfeeding clinic here at the John Radcliffe. So the support would first and foremost be your midwives and MSWs in your community area, then your health visitors, Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support, Abingdon Baby Cafe, and the La Leche League. And Abingdon Baby Cafe, La Leche League and Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support overarch all of it, and they will support you with that. They're fabulous organisations. And then there's us as well at the infant feeding team. So you can ring us.
And your health visitors.
Yes, and your health visitors, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how it normally works. So and that hasn't changed, Laura. I know it's been tough with COVID and everything, but women have been getting care. It hasn't all been face-to-face, but they have had care. They've not been left on their own. I promise you won't be left to struggle on your own.
It's an unknown again. The situation is changing daily. We don't know what's going to be happening in the next week. We may be in lockdown again. But as far as we know at the moment, the services are the same, and we are carrying on with everything that we're doing. The health visitors are running their services in a slightly altered way, I think. So you may not have face-to-face contact with your health visitor, but they will make contact with you, and you should be able to have access to them and have a conversation with them. So they are your, beyond the discharge from your health visitor, they're the ones that you'll go to if you've got concerns about your baby's development with your GP in your local area. And you really want to be in your local area for support. That's your first go-to, is that you go to somewhere that's nearest to your home, and then you go further later, because you don't want to be travelling around and coming out all the time when you are a new mum. You don't have to be coming to clinics miles away if you can have support in your local town, and that's really important, that you use local support first and then come further afield if it's more complex and you need more support.
Absolutely. And following on from that, Charlotte's made a comment, absolutely spot on. What a year to have babies. COVID-19 lockdown, it has been. But then that's what sparked this, and actually,
Positives
there have been some positives. Us being able to access Facebook Live's been really useful, and we've been able to talk about things that we think are important and really will help you all on your journeys to becoming fabulous mummies, which I'm sure you will be anyway, and dads. So it's thinking about that, and it's also we've had to rethink the way the care is given, and Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support have been doing it all on video, but actually it works really, really well. And like Naomi mentioned earlier, filming yourself and then showing somebody that film even on a virtual platform is a really good way of being able to provide the care. Thank goodness we have all these wonderful platforms that we can work with, because it has made life a lot easier and a lot less scary for you.
And if you're worried about nappies, take a picture of them and send them to somebody.
Absolutely.
If you're worried about the weight of pee and things like that, try a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons of water in the nappy and feel it. Just be creative in thinking, well, is that enough? And if you think that the colour of the nappy is not quite right, then take a picture and send it to somebody. Or if you've got an appointment with your midwife or health visitor and you're not sure, take the nappy with you and show them, so that they can see it, rather than having to describe it. If your baby's got spots or anything, then take photographs of them so that they can see them clearly. Think about how you can present the worries that you've got to get the maximum help if you can.
Right, I saw one here. Steph has said, hi, should I still harvest colostrum if I don't plan to breastfeed? Thank you. Well, babies will always benefit from having colostrum. It lines the stomach in a way that formula never can. It protects their gut, and it gives them that first food that is so important. It's like a baby's first vaccine.
Yeah.
It's absolutely chock-a-block with every single antibody your body has ever produced in your life. And if you think about the protection that that's going to provide to your baby, it's just irreplaceable. So even if you only give colostrum, it is so worth doing. You will be protecting your baby in a way that you could do in no other way. I don't know, anything else to add to that?
Well, I just think that be open-minded, and when you are in labour and you give birth and you take your baby up skin to skin, irrespective of the way that you want to feed your baby, you might feel differently. And just think how amazing it is that you've got that skill on how to get milk out of the breast and protect your supply, and it might be that your baby suckles and you enjoy it. So don't close the doors. It might be that you've started that first process. It's not going to make you lots of milk if you don't breastfeed. It's given you a skill that you have, and it's given you the colostrum that is really important, but it might mean that you feel differently, and you might feel that you want to let your baby suckle for a little while. And every breastfeed your baby has is a bonus. Every drop of colostrum the baby has is a bonus. So it's absolutely fine, whatever you do. That's absolutely fine. But you might feel differently when you've had your baby, and you might say, oh, actually, I'd quite like to give it a go.
Yeah. So we know they're born on a sea of motions, don't we? The babies are born with lots of hormones around, and actually we do normally suggest that people don't make a decision about how they're going to feed their baby until their baby is actually here, and then see how they feel. Obviously there are occasions when it isn't appropriate for a mother to feed. She might be rarely, but she may be on a medication that does prohibit it. So sometimes there are situations that would not work with feeding, but it's quite rare. So I think if you can keep an open mind, but if you're happy to give the colostrum, definitely.
Absolutely.
Hope that reassures you, Steph.
Skin to skin as well is crucial in
Yeah.
those early days. Just really make sure you get your baby close to you, even if you're going to be bottle feeding
Yeah,
and giving formula. Then keep the baby close, whatever. You can do skin to skin even if you're not breastfeeding,
yeah.
and that's ongoing.
And that's lovely for the baby. You know, we've mentioned it before. It regulates their heart rate, their breathing, their temperature. It stops them from crying. It conserves energy. Skin to skin is just fantastic. It's like a default.
Pain relief,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, for you and them.
Yeah, it releases hormones that make you comfortable and happy, and that's really important that you start to relax. But also breastfeeding releases hormones that make you relax as well and make you sleep. So believe it or not, the research that's come out says that breastfeeding mums get more sleep than
Yeah.
bottle feeding
45
mums.
minutes a night.
Yeah, longer. So that myth that if
Yeah,
you
that
if
wasn't
you
the
give,
total.
No.
It was 45 minutes longer a night.
We know that mums that breastfeed do get more sleep than mums that bottle feed. So it's a myth that your baby will sleep longer if you do bottle feed, but it's absolutely fine whichever decision you make, but just so that you know that.
So Rona's put another post up saying, she said, thanks so much. I had to bottle feed the first time due to a severe tongue tie. This is my second and he's fed better than the first, but has also got a tongue tie. But you're absolutely right. It's such a difficult and emotive decision to make. I urge anyone struggling with a decision to talk to anyone who comes into contact with you, midwives, health visitors, etc. I've felt judged by friends or family. I've spent a lot of time reading about paced and responsive bottle feeding and baby wearing that I still build as good a connection as I can. Hang on, it needs to go down. As I can, where am I? With this baby. But this time around, it's about my mental state and ability to have the capacity I need for both my baby and toddler and family as a whole. Thank you both for your kind words and advice. It's got to be right for you as a family. There's no right answer for everybody, so it's got to be what's right
really
for you.
important.
Very true words from Rona.
Yeah, thank you for the contribution there.
Laura's come back saying, thanks ladies, it's reassuring to know that services are still available. Absolutely, and they always have been. They have been a little bit different, but they have been there. Unfortunately, I had infections within a few days of having both my last two, so just want to be prepared. Absolutely, yeah, we're here. The midwives will be around as well, and even when we were in the greatest of lockdowns, there still was support out there. Charlotte has said, is there any baby groups or hydro pools to use around here as my baby loves water? I think I'll put that back out to the group out there, really. I don't know, does anybody know? Because it's not something I know about. If you know of any of baby groups and hydro pools, could you perhaps answer Charlotte? That would be lovely. Yeah.
I think that's the issue.
Yeah.
Are they open and is it
so
running?
anyone out there knows.
Partial lockdowns here and
Yeah.
a lot of swimming pools haven't opened.
So yeah, I'd maybe just have if anybody else does know, just answer Charlotte on here. That would be lovely. So I think we're just about there, and that's 29 minutes past, so pretty much up to time really. So anything to add?
No, I think we've had a really good session. We've had some great
Really
questions.
good questions.
We've had some older babies today, which is lovely, and really, really delighted to answer your questions and to meet you all really. And we'll be back next week, next Thursday, and it comes around very quickly, doesn't it? So if you think of any more questions, we'd love to hear from you.
And I think, Delana, if I can remind you to get in touch either with us or your health visitor, that would be great, please. So we can make sure that feeding plan's been put in place. That would be lovely. All right, I think we're going to say goodbye, and we'll be here again next week.
Have a good week.
Yeah.
Happy feeding.
Yes. Enjoy your babies. Goodbye.